In this class, we're going to study Chapter 2 of Porphyry's Introduction. Chapter 2 of Porphyry's Introduction. So let's prepare our notes and get ready to study Chapter 2 of Porphyry's Introduction. The title of this class is Classical Reasoning 1. Classical Reasoning 1. This is Lesson 2. And in Lesson 2, we're studying Chapter 2 of Porphyry's Introduction. Porphyry, Chapter 2. In our first lesson, we were introduced to Porphyry's introduction in that first chapter. And Porphyry told us that in order for us to study Aristotle's Categories, which is the first book of Aristotle's work on reasoning, there are 5 terms we have to understand. And these are called the 5 Predicables. So in Chapter 1, just for review, we learned the names of the 5 predicables. The first one was genus. The second one was difference. Third was species. The fourth was peculiarity. And the fifth is accident. These are 5 different kinds of predicates, 5 different kinds of things that can be said about a subject. So if we take a subject, let's take, we can take an individual. We can take Abraham in the Bible. And we can say that Abraham is our subject. And then we can predicate things about Abraham. We can say Abraham is, and we can think of a bunch of different predicates, things we can say about Abraham. What's one thing you can say about Abraham? Abraham is wise, okay? I heard somebody say old. But he's dead. So.
Just.
Huh?
Just.
He's just. Let's think of something other than like a descriptive word. What else can we say? Abraham, where is he from? He's a Hebrew, right? He is a Hebrew. What did you say? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's use a Hebrew. He is a Hebrew. Okay? What else can you say? He is a man, right? We can say he is an animal. We can say he is the father of Isaac. Okay, so there's all different things that we can predicate or say. You go ahead and fix it. Go ahead and fix it. There are all different things that we can say about Abraham. All right? We could say Abraham is wise. Abraham is a Hebrew. Abraham is a man. Abraham is an animal. Abraham is a father of Isaac. We can say, like I said before, Abraham is dead. Okay? So all different kinds of predicates. And we can go on like this, probably thinking of hundreds of different things we can predicate about Abraham. But what Porphyry wants us to know is that though there are hundreds, who knows, maybe thousands of different things we can say about a subject, and these are all called predicates. We learned about that in grammar. Okay? Subject and predicate. Though there are many, many, many things we can say about a subject, all of these belong to one of these 5 different classes: genus, difference, species, peculiarity, and accident. And in Porphyry's introduction, we're going to study each one of these classes and understand what it is. Okay? So that our goal in studying Porphyry's introduction is that we can look at any predicate and we can say, oh, that's a genus, that's a species, that's a difference, that's a peculiarity, that's an accident, that's a genus. We'll be able to identify what class each predicate belongs to. Just like in grammar, we can look at words and identify what part of speech they belong to. All right? So Porphyry wants us to know that in order for us to understand Aristotle's categories, we have to understand what the 5 predicables are. And so he wrote this book titled The Introduction to teach one of his students what the predicables are to help him prepare for Aristotle's categories. So that's what we learned in the first chapter. You have all this down in your notes? Okay? So I'm going to erase it. So that's what we learned in the first chapter. We learned that there are five topics that Porphyry says we have to learn if we're going to easily and accurately understand Aristotle's categories, which is the first book of the Organon. Okay? So in this chapter, chapter 2, in chapter 2 we're going to learn about genus and species. And others, but mainly about genus and species. And what we're going to do in our classes, is simply read through the text together, take our time, go through the text, and we'll stop and talk about different things that are said in the text as we go through it, just to make sure everything's clear. But the goal in our study, especially in reasoning, because this really is the most important subject in your whole education. Reasoning, your knowledge of reasoning, your mastery of the art of reasoning will really determine whether you can become wise or whether you're going to struggle in philosophy and theology and subjects like that. It really is going to come down to reasoning. Reasoning is the most important subject in the whole entire curriculum. So we're just going to take our time, read line by line through this book and make sure everything is clear. Okay? So that's where we're going. So let's start at chapter 2, right at the top. Let's look at the text. Read along with me, okay? Because I want you to see what we read, and then I'll stop when I know that there's something that needs to be explained. But remember that we just got done learning about the predicables in chapter 1, right? And now Porphyry continues with this next chapter. He writes, "It seems indeed that neither genus nor species is simply denominated. It seems that neither genus nor species is simply denominated." That means that these words, genus and species, the words, are used to name different ideas. Okay? So these words, genus and species, these words are used to identify different ideas, to name different ideas. So, for example, if we have an idea over here, idea A, and idea B, what would be ideal, the perfect world would be that one word was a name for idea A, and one word was the name for idea B. That would be the perfect world. Everything would be simple. All of our communication would be clear. We would have an idea and a word and an idea. Just like in grammar. In classical Latin, there's one letter, one sound. It's nice and simple. And then you come to ecclesiastical Latin and it gets more complicated. One letter might have a couple different sounds, right? Then you get to English and it's a total mess. There are letters that might have 6 different sounds. There are some letters that have no sound. And it gets very, very confusing in English. And that's sort of real life. It's often confusing because you have one letter but 5 different sounds. So how do you know which sound to use? It's confusing. The same is true with words, because while this would be the perfect world to live in, the reality is that there's an idea C, and there's an idea D, and an idea E, and an idea F. And this word is used to name this idea, but it's also used to name this idea, and it's also used to name this idea, and this word is used to name this idea, and it's also used to name this idea, and that's what ends up happening. Okay? There's a lot of confusion, and we have to go through and learn how many different ideas is this word used to name. We have to find them. We have to go through writings, and we have to see, how is this word used? It's used to refer to idea A. It's used to refer to idea D. It's used to refer to idea F. And we have to understand each one of those ideas. And then we have to ask, when we say this word, or when Aristotle uses this word, does he mean idea A? Or does he mean idea D? Or does he mean idea F? And when Aristotle uses this word, does he mean idea C, or idea B, or idea E? Which one does he mean? Okay? And so that's the confusion that happens with words. Words are used to signify different ideas by different people, in different places, in different books. One author may use that word in all 3 different ways. We may see that word in another book, and we may find out that, oh man, we got another one. This author over here, when he uses that word, he's talking about this idea, and it gets complicated. It gets confusing. And what we have to be careful of is that whenever we use a word, we understand how it's being used. And we make sure we use it in the right way. So if we're reading Aristotle, we need to ask, how does he use this word? And what Porphyry is going to show us is that Aristotle doesn't mean this. Aristotle doesn't mean this. What Aristotle means is this. And when Aristotle uses this word, he doesn't mean this or this. What he means is this. And see how that takes away the confusion? Okay? It takes away the confusion and allows us to put this idea to this word, and once we learn that, after that, whenever we see that word, we understand what it means. Okay, so in that first sentence, when he says, neither genus nor species is simply denominated, he means the names genus and species are used in different ways. What simply denominated would mean would be this. If, let me erase this. This is what it means to be not simply denominated. Okay? What it would mean to be simply denominated was the first illustration, where we said, here's idea A. Genus means A. Here's idea B. Species means B. That's what it would mean for genus and species to be simply denominated. Simple. The names and their meanings are simple. But what he says to us there is genus and species are not simply denominated. That's why this is confusing. All right? You got that idea in your head? Genus and species are not simply denominated. For a collection of certain things subsisting in a certain respect with reference to one thing and to each other is called a genus. That's the first idea. That's idea A, what he just said there. A collection of certain things subsisting. This word subsist means to exist. A collection of certain things subsisting or existing in a certain respect with reference to one thing and to each other is called genus. What does that mean? So this first definition he gives us, he says, okay, let's talk about genus. Here's the first idea, the first way that genus is used. A collection of things he says, subsisting with reference to one thing. To one thing and to each other. That's one idea of a genus. And obviously this isn't baby stuff, this is hard. So you really got to pay attention. The first meaning of genus, a collection of things subsisting with reference to one thing and to each other. What does that mean? And let me just give you some advice. Whenever you're reading something difficult, especially in philosophy, really in any subject, when you're reading and you come across something that's really difficult to understand, one of the best ways to clear it up and understand it is to look at examples. And what you'll find is Aristotle, a lot of times he writes and it's confusing. It's hard to understand his definitions or descriptions of things. Sometimes it's confusing, but he'll always give you examples. And the examples help you to see what he's talking about. All right? So if you read a definition or a description in a philosophy textbook and you're like, I don't know what that means. Because I often have that problem, especially if I'm translating. I'm working to translate all of Alvarez's grammar. And so I'll read a rule in Latin grammar and say, man, I really don't know what this one rule means. But he provides examples, and when I look at the examples, I'll say, oh, now I see what he's talking about. And seeing the examples will help me to go back and translate the rule. So the same thing is true in philosophy. A lot of times, like I said, you'll see a definition and it will be confusing. And you'll sit there wasting time banging your head against the desk trying to understand this definition, where if you would just keep reading, you'll find that he provides examples. And the examples will help you to see what he's talking about. So this is a good example. This definition is pretty hard to understand. Right? A collection of things subsisting with reference to one thing and to each other. That's not easy to understand. And you can read that and say, well, that's really not clear. But then he gives us an example. He says, according to this signification, the genus of the Heraclidae is denominated from the habitude of one thing, I mean, from Hercules. And the multitude of those who derive in a certain respect alliance from Hercules. So imagine if we have a whole group of people. And these people are called the Heraclidae. All of these people. And inside this group, there are tons and tons of people inside this group. A genus, in this sense, is a collection of things, right? Follow me here. The example will illustrate it for us. A collection of things, right? In this case, a collection of people. A collection of things subsisting with reference to one thing. So this collection exists because every member of this collection has a relationship to one thing in common. What is the one thing in common? Do you know what the one thing in common that all of these things have? You know what it means to be a Heraclidae? Sons of Hercules. Okay? So what all of these have in common is that there's one person, Hercules, who is the father or ancestor of all of these people. So all of these people inside this group, they're all in this group because they all have a relationship with reference to one thing, and that is to Hercules. You understand that? Okay? A collection of things subsisting with reference to one thing. This collection exists because all of these members have relation to one thing, but also to each other. So they also have relationship to each other, all between each other. And this goes on through all of these people. They all have a relationship to each other. Okay? This relationship that they have not only makes them sons of Hercules, but it makes them brothers. And not only does it make them brothers, because we're not just talking about a family here, they're also fellow soldiers. So if anything happens to this group, if anyone does any evil to this group, they all are a band of brothers. It's an alliance. And this alliance, the reason why they have this alliance is because they're all sons of Hercules. Okay? So that's an example of a genus, an alliance, a relationship, a collection of things where all of the members have something in common, one thing in common, and they also have a relationship to each other because of that one thing. So this is a clear example of where the definition may be confusing, but the example that he gives makes it really clear. Got that? All right? You got that like in your notes? Got that? Like a little diagram of this? Okay. Remember, you can always watch these videos. You have to remember that just because you're in class with me doesn't mean you can't watch the videos. Right? All right, so a collection of things subsisting with reference to one thing and to each other. That's the first definition. He goes on to say, blah, 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 blah. After another manner, about halfway down the page, do you see where he says, after another manner? After another manner also, the principle of the generation of everyone is again denominated genus. So the second meaning of genus is the principle of generation. What in the world does that mean? We have another confusing definition, right? The second meaning of genus, he says, after another manner, in another way, the principle of generation of everyone is again denominated genus. Whether from the generator, the generator, that is the one who generates, or from the place in which someone is born. So this has the idea of being the origin, the source, the principle of generation. So it's like that, right? It's going to be like this, but a little different. You have this image here of this alliance between all the members of this class. Okay? The second idea is like that, but just a little different. It's the principle of generation. In other words, here's a father. He is the generator of a son, but he may be the generator of multiple sons. Let's say he has 3 sons. Okay, so we have son, son, and son. This relationship that these have to their generator, their source, is also called the genus. All right? And what he explains there is that this can also refer to their place of origin. So it has a general kind of idea. Not just the origin of their birth in terms of who their father is, but also their place of birth, or any kind of idea of origin or generation. All right? So if I say, and he gives this example here, let me just stick to the text. Let's read this. He says, everyone is denominated genus whether from the generator or from the place in which someone is born. Thus, and here's an example to clarify this, we say that Orestes derived his genus from Tantalus, but Hyllus derived his genus from Hercules. So they were 2 men who came from different ancestors. That's the second example, this idea of being born or generated from a certain origin, a certain ancestor. And he also says, again, in another way, we say that Pindar was a poet, a Greek poet. Pindar was by genus a Theban. That means he was born in Thebes. He was from Thebes. Thebes was his place of origin. But Plato was an Athenian. For the country is a certain principle of the generation of everyone, in the same manner as a father. So this second use of genus, we can put, for example, as from a father or one's country. What's interesting, based on this relationship, you know the word patriotic, right? To be a patriot. You know what the word patriotic actually means? Patriot. It means to be loyal to your country, right? But what's pater mean? Father. What do you think patriotic means? It basically means loyal to your father, right? Loyal to your fatherland. Loyal to your native land. What does native mean? Native means where you were born. So your country and your birth are really related. You see that? Okay? So for this second example, for this second use of genus, we see that it's used to express a principle of generation or a person's origin, where they come from. And that could refer to a father or to a country. Right? Plato was an Athenian, refers to a country. We see Hyllus was from Hercules. Orestes was from Tantalus, referring to their father. So that's the second idea of genus. Porphyry tells us there's also a third idea of genus. Actually, before he gets to the third idea, he goes into this a little more. So let's just read this. He says, this signification appears to be one that may be easily adopted. This signification appears to be one that may be easily adopted. For those are called Heraclidae, who derive their origin from the genus of Hercules. And Cecropidae are those who derive their origin from the genus of Cecrops. These are ancient Greek characters. And also those who have an affinity to these. The first genus is denominated that from which the principle of the generation of anyone is derived. But afterwards, the multitude of those who originate from one principle, as for instance from Hercules, which genus, defining and separating from others, we call the whole collected multitude the genus of the Heraclidae. So he goes to explain there these ideas that he explained in the first two definitions. All right? So you have the first two definitions, and I want you to see in the text where this information is coming from, because you can read this and you need to read this on your own, and you need to remember where we saw these things as you reread it. In the next paragraph, he gets to the third idea expressed by genus. He says, again, after another manner, or in another way, genus is denominated that to which species is subjected. That to which species is subjected. So, here's a big category of things, a class of things. Let's call this, we'll call this animal, okay? Or even better, we'll call this living things. What are two categories or classes that are inside living things? What are two different kinds of living things? Good, plants and animals. And we can imagine that there are a million different kinds of plants and animals, right? If we wanted to divide animals, how could we divide animals? There's one way to divide animals. Man and beasts, okay? And then inside this category, what's in this category? Just individual men. Okay? You, me, every other individual person. There are individuals in this class. And this individual is in this class, but he's also in this class. Follow me up here for a minute. This individual is in this class, but this whole class is in this class, right? So he is also in this class, and this whole class is also in this class, so he is also in this class. You understand that? So if this was, let's just say this was Abraham again. Okay, this is Abraham. What can you say about Abraham? Abraham is a man, right? Abraham is an animal. Abraham is a living thing, or a living creature, okay? So we can call Abraham a man because he belongs to this class. We can call him an animal because this whole class belongs inside this class. And we can call him a living thing because this whole class belongs inside this class. You see that? All right? Now, if we look at this line here, it says, after another manner, genus is denominated that to which species is subjected. Genus is that to which species is subjected. So this is a genus. Let me make sure this is on video here. This is a genus, and it divides into two species. So species are the parts into which a genus divides. You've heard the word species because we hear it when we talk about animals, right? We say, what species is this? Genus is a class that divides into different species. But look at this. Here, this is a class, right, that divides into species. So this is also genus. So animal is also a genus because it divides into species. All right? So we have a genus that divides into species, but we find another class divides into species, so that is also genus. Animal is both genus and species. But when we get to man, follow me up here. When we get to man, does man divide into species? No. Man divides into individuals. These are called individuals. Man does not divide into species. Man only divides into individuals. Man is only species. Animal is both genus and species. It's species because it's a part of a genus above it. But it's genus because it's the whole of the parts below it. You understand that? But man is a species because it's a part of the genus above it, but it's not a genus because it does not divide into species. It simply contains individuals. All right? So I'm getting ahead a little bit, but if you see that illustration, you'll now understand what Porphyry is talking about. So I'm going to read the text, but in the video, I'm going to keep this illustration on the video, so as I read this, you can keep looking at this, okay? So this is the third meaning of genus. Genus is denominated that to which species is subjected. That's what it means. Genus is that to which species is subjected. Watch me up here real quick. Genus is that to which species is subjected. Subjected means under or within. Okay? You understand that I draw this like this from top to bottom to illustrate it, but really these two categories are inside this one. Do you understand that? If I wanted to draw it really well, I would show you that all of these things are inside this class. But we draw it like this just to illustrate the relationship. Genus is that to which species are subjected. A genus of this kind is a certain principle of the things which are under it, and appears to comprehend all the multitude which is under it. To comprehend means to hold or contain, right? To comprehend, to hold. Genus comprehends or contains all the multitude that's under it. Animals is a genus. It contains all the multitude underneath it. You understand that idea? Okay. And then he says in the next line, I'm going to switch back to the text on the video here. He says, and I wish this text was divided a little bit better into paragraphs, because you have important sections of the text and they're just lumped into the same paragraph, which makes it more confusing than it should be. So you see the paragraph that starts again after another manner? Do you see that paragraph? Okay. Now if you go down 5 or 6 lines, you'll see another sentence begins that says, since therefore genus. Just like 5 or 6 sentences down, 5 or 6 lines down. You see it says, since therefore genus. Can you find that? So it's the paragraph that starts again after another manner, but if you go down 5 or 6 lines, since therefore genus, do you see it? Okay? This is another section that we should understand. This is page 18 of the document. Since, therefore, genus, this is a summary here he gets into, which I wish was a separate paragraph. He says, since, therefore, genus is denominated in a threefold manner. Right? What he's talking about is this. Since genus is denominated in a threefold manner, and we really haven't defined this third way yet. He's going to define it in a minute. Since genus is denominated in a threefold manner, since genus, the word genus, is used in three different ways. Since genus is denominated in a threefold manner, the third is that which is considered by philosophers. The third is that which is considered by philosophers. And my illustration up here shows that because this is philosophy. The third use is that which is used by the philosophers to order ideas in philosophy. Okay? So remember I drew the confusing picture and I said, he doesn't mean that idea, he doesn't mean that idea, right? He means this idea. Well, Porphyry introduced us to the first idea, and that is not what the philosophers mean. Porphyry introduced the second idea of the word genus, and he says that is not what the philosophers mean when they use it. When the philosophers use the word genus, they mean it in this way, which is the third meaning, or the third manner in which the word is used. So, what Porphyry does there for us, if you appreciate this, what Porphyry does is he clears up all that confusion. Okay? And he says, this is not the way, this is not the idea, this third way is the idea. And again, he still hasn't really given us this definition yet. He's about to do that coming up. But he introduced this idea at the beginning of that paragraph. Genus is denominated that to which species is subjected. This is the third idea. He hasn't gone into the details yet. All right? Since, therefore, genus is denominated in a threefold manner, the third way, is that which is considered by philosophers, which also describing they explain when they say that genus is that which is predicated of many things differing in species in answer to the question what a thing is. That's the definition right there. Okay, so the definition of genus, the third definition that he says is the way the philosophers use it, is written there. We just read it. They say that genus is that which is predicated of many things. And you should write this. That which is predicated, and you're going to see how clear this definition is when we look back at our illustration. That which is predicated of many things differing in species in answer to the question sorry, I'm running out of space here. In answer to the question, what is this? That's the definition of genus. That which is predicated of many things, differing in species, in answer to the question, what is this? And I'm going to spend the rest of our class 15 minutes explaining that definition. Okay? That which is predicated of many things, differing in species, in answer to the question, what is this? So there's three parts to this definition. three things that are true of genus. And we have to make sure we see each of them and understand each of them. That which is predicated of many things, differing in species, in answer to the question, what is this? Okay, now let's look at our illustration up here. Look up here with me because you can copy that definition out of the book. So we want to look and see, hey, man is a class of things. Man is a collection of things. And look at what the definition says. Genus is that which is predicated of many things. Is man predicated of many things? Yes. Man is predicated of many individuals. Abraham is man, Isaac is man, Moses is man, St. Paul is man, Socrates is man. Every man that ever lived, every human being that ever lived has man predicated of it. You got that? So man is predicated of everything. Is man a genus? Is man a genus? No. No. Why? Because genus is that which is predicated of many things, but those things differ in species. Man is predicated of all of these things. Pay attention here because I think you can understand this. Man is predicated of all these things. Do these things differ in species? No. That's why this is not genus. So man is predicated of many things, but these things do not differ in species. So man is not a genus. You see that and understand that? All right, now let's move up to animal. Is animal predicated of many things? Animal is predicated of all of these things. So animal is predicated of many things. The things that animal is predicated of, do they differ in species? Yes. We see two species right here. Animal is predicated of many things that differ in species. Okay, so animal passes these first two tests. It is predicated of many things. Those things do differ in species. And the third thing is, it answers to the question, what is this? What is this? Does animal answer the question, what is this? What is Abraham? Abraham is man, right? Abraham is animal. Does this answer the question, what is Abraham? Abraham is an animal. Does this answer the question, what is Abraham? Yes, it does. Okay? It does answer the question, what is Abraham? So it passes all three of these points. Animal is predicated of many things. It's predicated of many things that differ in species, and it answers the question, what is this? So animal is a genus. Man is predicated of many things. Let me ask you this. Does man answer the question, what is this? Yes, it does. You're just guessing. You didn't even think. If this is Abraham and I say, what is Abraham? Man, you're telling me man doesn't answer that question? Of course it does. So man is predicated of many things. Man does answer the question, what is this? But man does not divide into species. And so man is not genus. Do you see that? Okay? Man is, we're going to learn later that man is species. Genus has to be predicated of many things. Those things have to divide into different species, and it has to answer the question, what is this? All right? That's what a genus is. So for the rest of this class period, about 10 minutes, let's just finish reading this section, which I think is clear now. Okay? We're going to start where I showed you before. Since, therefore, genus. Since, therefore, genus is denominated in a threefold manner, the third way, which we just went over, is that which is considered by philosophers, which also describing, they explain when they say that genus is that which is predicated of many things, differing in species, in answer to the question, what a thing is. As, for instance, what example does he give us? Animal, just like we saw. Okay? For of things which are predicated, some are predicated of one thing only. Remember, the first point was predicated of many things. Some things are predicated of one thing only. Predicated of one thing only. For example, Socrates, this man, that thing. So what does that mean? Predicated of only one thing. If I point to him and I say, who is that? Or, not to be silly, but if I said, what is that? You could say, that is Isaiah. His name is predicated of only one thing. You understand that? It's a proper noun, right? That is Isaiah Michael. So it's predicated of only one thing. It's the proper name. So you see, I want to make another note. You see how what we learn in grammar about proper nouns applies here in reasoning. A name that is predicated of only one thing is a proper noun. A name that is predicated of many things, like animal, is a common noun. It's predicated of many things. So you see that? You see how grammar comes from this reasoning. It comes from this. That's why we have proper nouns and common nouns. Some things are predicated of one thing only, such as individuals. As for instance, Socrates. If I say, what is that or who is that? Everybody would say, that is Socrates. And that name is understood to refer to only one thing. That man, Socrates. Okay? Other names are predicated of many things, such as genera. Genera is the plural form of genus. Just make sure you note that, because that can be confusing. Genus is singular. Genus is singular, and the plural form of genus is genera. So when you see the word genera, don't think it's something different or some other word. It's just the plural form of genus. Okay? So Porphyry tells us some things can be predicated only of an individual, like a proper name. But other things can be predicated of many things. Genera, species, differences, peculiarities, and accidents. Notice, those are the 5 predicables. Those are the 5 classes of things he said we have to study, right? Genera, or genus, species, difference, peculiarity, and accident. What do they all have in common? What do all 5 of them have in common? He just said it. They can be predicated of many things. I feel like I'm losing you here. The 5 predicables have this all in common. They can all be predicated of many things. Genus, species, difference, peculiarity, accident. They can all be predicated of many things. Man is species. It can be predicated of many things. Animal is genus. It can be predicated of many things. And we're going to see difference, peculiarity, accident. They can all be predicated of many things. Okay? So they have that all in common. So if I were to take any two of the predicables, if I were to say, Jacob, genus and species, what do they have in common?
Species comes from genus.
No. What do they have in common? They can be predicated of many things. What do species and accident have in common? They can be predicated of many things. I'm not asking you to reach into the depths of your understanding and answer these questions. I just told you the answer. Genus and difference. You haven't even studied difference yet. I'm not asking you, based on your past life in a distant galaxy, when you learned all of this stuff, what the answer is. I just told you what the answer is. It's very simple. What do genus and difference have in common? They're both predicated of many things. What do species and peculiarity have in common? Very good. That's the answer. All five of the predicables, they don't have much in common, as we'll see. But they have one thing in common. They have one thing in common. And I want you to write this down because you have to learn this. All five predicables are predicated of many things. All five predicables. I'll write it over here. Genus, difference, species, peculiarity, and accident. All five of the predicables are all predicated of many things. They all have that in common. That's the only thing they all have in common. They are all predicated of many things. They are all names, but what's important is they are all common names. They're all common names. They're all predicated of many things. Let's finish reading here. We've got a couple minutes left. The others, the predicables, are predicated of many things, such as genera, species, differences, peculiarities, accidents, which are predicated in common and are not peculiar to any one thing. They are common nouns, common names. They are not peculiar names. They are not proper names. That's what it means to be a proper name, a peculiar name. They're not proper names. They're common names. Genus is indeed such as animal, and species is such as man. Difference is such as rational. Peculiarity such as risible. Accident such as white, black, and to sit or sitting. So he gives us an example of each of the five predicables. Genus is like animal. Species would be man. An example of difference is rational. An example of peculiarity is risible, able to laugh. And an example of accident would be white or black or sitting. Genera therefore differ from things which are predicated of one thing only in this, that they are predicated of many things. But they differ from, and he goes through a list, and we're going to stop there for this lesson. So you see we're getting into this comparison of the predicables. This is what genus is. It's like species in this. It's like difference in this. It's like peculiarity in this. But it's different from species in this. And that's what he's going to do for the rest of this book. He's going to explain what each of the predicables are, the classes of predicates. He's going to explain what they are, and then he's going to compare and contrast them all. So you can see really clearly what each of them is. All right? So, to wrap up this lesson, we're getting started in the study of Lesson 2 in Porphyry's introduction. In Lesson 1, we learned that there are 5 concepts that we need to learn. They're called the 5 predicables. 5 classes of predicates, 5 classes of names that can be predicated of subjects. 5 classes. And they're genus, difference, species, peculiarity, and accident. That was chapter 1. In chapter 2, he explained why the word genus is confusing, because there are 3 possible meanings. He explained that the first 2 meanings are not the meanings that we use in philosophy. He said the third meaning is the meaning that we're going to use, that Aristotle is going to use in philosophy. Genus is that which is predicated of many things, differing in species, in answer to the question, what is this? He then explained that there are some things that are predicated only of individuals, proper names, and he said the 5 predicables have this in common, that all of them are predicated of many things. And we're going to stop there, because beginning at that point, we're going to start comparing and contrasting all of the predicables. The first one we're going to study in the rest of this chapter is species. Okay? So take a minute, write a brief summary of this lesson, and that's all for our first part of our study of chapter 2 of Porphyry's introduction.